Alright, Pokemon fans, now this video might get some backlash, but honestly, I was spending some time during the Memorial Day weekend just, rewatching some of the episodes of Pokemon that I grew up with, and I got to the Silver Conference in the Pokemon Master Quest series, and we all know the battle between rivals, Ash Ketchum versus Gary Oak in the first round of the 6-on-6 battles in the Silver Conference. Everybody and their mother from the 90s, I was born in 91, knows that battle was the most hype battle of the series up until that point, just because we've never seen Ash and Gary Oak in a full 6-on-6 battle. If I'm not mistaken, the only other battle we saw them have was right before the Johto series began. It was right when Ash and company got back from the Orange League. That's it. They just got back from the Orange Island Saga. It was Pikachu versus Eevee. It was a battle we wanted to see because, number one, it was a throwback to Pokemon Yellow, where you, Ash Ketchum, gets Pikachu, Gary chooses Eevee, and then you have your first battle in the lab. Now, in the anime, those two had a battle outside of Professor Oak's lab, but even though Gary won, it was not a good battle simply because Ash wasn't in his right mind. He was just being hot-headed and not the cool and collected person he was against Drake during the Orange League battle. So even though it was exciting to see them battle one-on-one for the first time, it was disappointing that that battle ended the way it did just because Ash's overconfidence. And we saw the same thing after the Battle Frontier arc where he fought Gary Oak once again, Professor Oak's lab. Electivire easily defeated Pikachu because, again, Ash's attitude and cockiness, it pretty much his own pride blinds him. Gary Oak is there to whip Ash back into shape after he wins a major victory. He thinks that he's, hey, I'm really powerful now, I can do anything, but then he easily gets smacked down by Gary Oak. So that inspires him to go on a new journey, being the Sinnoh region. So sticking with this battle in particular, nostalgia wise, it's awesome. I love it. However, I was was I around 13? I forgot. I was either a preteen or a young teenager when this episode first aired. Heck, I was probably 10 or 12. I don't even remember. I remember I was in, I think, middle school, or yeah, I think maybe 6th grade or 7th grade. But in any case, when I saw the episode, I was hyped. Looking back as an adult, I'm 25 now. It really wasn't a good battle, but here's why. And because when you're older, you look at things a lot differently in terms of, hey, that shouldn't have worked. That attack made no sense, blah, 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 blah. But of course, I know that the dynamic between the anime and video games are highly different because they do things on the anime that you wouldn't even dream they would do in the video games, which would be cool if they did. But I think the three biggest things that again, just thinking about it myself, as well as Pokemon fans I've talked to over the years, if I were to list three of the biggest, WTH moments of the battle, number one would be Charizard taking out Gary's Golem with a Dragon Rage attack. And mind you, that Golem took no damage whatsoever. It used Rollout. It was heading towards Charizard. It got hit with Dragon Rage. Now is it. Charizard did try to use a Seismic Toss, but Golem was too heavy for him to list, so he actually dropped him. But Golem landed on its feet, so it's not like, Charizard dropped Golem. It took like maybe half damage and then got knocked out by Dragon Rage. That wasn't the case. It was literally, I'm going to use Rollout. It got hit by the Energy Orb, and that was it. Dragon Rage knocked it out. The second biggest thing is Heracross somehow, and I mean, basically, I think it used Fury Attack to knock Gary's Magmar into the air. Magmar fell down. It used Fire Blast, and then it jumped into its own Fire Blast, almost like call it like the Johto early version of Flare Blitz. Magmar lands on Heracross on a boulder, and then right in its face, and again, mind you, Heracross is already engulfed in flames. It uses Flamethrower. Then, by some means, it flaps its wings, and it disperses to flames, and then takes out Magmar with Mega Horn. It was probably one of the craziest things Pokemon fans had seen up until that point. It was so ridiculous. It was cool when I was a kid. I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. Watching it now, it's like that made no sense whatsoever. And then, of course, the biggest thing is the fact that Ash didn't use his signature Pokemon Pikachu in a full battle with his rival Gary. That, to me, that was one of the most inexcusable things. Come seriously, I mean, Gary Oak used his starter Pokemon Blastoise, and he didn't use Pikachu. I mean, was Ash thinking, okay, well, Pikachu lost against Eevee, so there's no way he's going to win against, Gary Oak. But it was ridiculous. I think he should have used Pikachu. So anyway, to the battle itself, when you really dissect the battle, and again, this is, I guess you could say more with me being a little bit critical, because looking back at the battle, it really wasn't that good, because the thing is, it was really rushed when you think about it. There were way too many one-hit knockouts in that match to make it a good fight. So starting with the beginning, and I really didn't have a problem with this particular one, it was Nidoqueen versus Tauros. Tauros goes in with takedown, and it gets easily knocked out with one Hyper Beam. If I'm not mistaken, the Nidoqueen actually used Rock Smash to start off the battle, and Tauros kind of dispersed the boulders and rocks that were heading for it. Then Ash went straight on with that takedown attack, only for it to be grabbed by the horns and then knocked out with a Hyper Beam. So that battle was quick, and it was over Tauros. Number one, it sucked because up until that point, Tauros was only seen in battle against Drake, where it took out Venusaur, and then I think it weakened Dragonite a little bit before being defeated. But now, we see Tauros again, assuming it's the same one, and it easily gets knocked out. That is a bit of a downer. But I liked how Brock and Misty were on the sidelines saying, hey, Ash needs to learn that he can't fight this with pure power alone. He has to think. So even though Tauros fell out the battle early, I think that was a perfect chance for Ash to say, okay, I really can't just go in head on like I usually do in most battles and win. I need to think things through, because Gary Oak is a legit threat. Next up, if I'm not mistaken, he sends out his Heracross. Nidoqueen is recalled back for Magmar, and then that led to the battle, where Heracross somehow took a Fire Blast / flamethrower to the face by dispersing the flames with his wings, then winning the battle with Megahorn. Kind of a, hey, anime logic. I mean, thunder armor, if you will. It makes no sense, but hey, it happened. Next thing you know, Blastoise hits the battlefield, and that battle was, it was pretty interesting. I believe that was the cliffhanger ending. It was a Hydro Pump / either Horn Attack or Mega Horn. I think Heracross was going for a Horn Attack, I believe. And this is the part that kind of baffled me. The beginning of the next episode was Heracross being told by Ash to, go behind a boulder to shield itself from Hydro Pump. And when it did that, the Hydro Pump was so powerful, it blasted the boulder and then knocked out. It basically blasted through the boulder and knocked out Heracross. Excuse me, I'm tongue-tied there. Heracross. My question is, I know Ash, again, was heading head-on into the attack mode, which he shouldn't have done. He made the same mistake with Tauros. He told Heracross to go straight into Blastoise with an attack and then got knocked out by a beam. In this case, not Hyper Beam, but Hydro Pump. And it really was a foolish move, because just like a Nidoqueen, Blastoise is, well, I guess you could say more defensive, given the fact that it has a tough shell. And the reason I found it a bit confusing was Ash told Heracross to hide behind a rock, and then it got blasted with Hydro Pump. My thing is, can Blastoise actually control the path of its Hydro Pump attack? Like, let's say if you were running right to Hydro Pump, but then you jumped out of the way, like, to roll on the ground or something, would Blastoise be able to, hit you with the water? I know if it directed its cannons, it could, propel the water to hit you. But for Ash to tell Heracross to have time to hide behind a boulder instead of flying away, I mean, granted, it's not a bug flying type, but in the anime, it's clearly seen flying on multiple occasions. So, hey, that was in Heracross. Then from there, the battle got really intense, because, again, Ash was down 2 Pokemon at this point. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the next Pokemon he called into battle was Bayleaf. And again, I'm just asking myself, why didn't... This is one of those times where, see, if Pikachu were in the battle, I wouldn't say he would easily defeat Blastoise or even win. But the fact that it's a fast, agile, electric type, I think it would be pretty interesting for it to fight Blastoise. But here's the really cool part. I know Blastoise was using Rapid Spin to deflect attacks. Like, I believe it used it to deflect Bayleaf's Razor Leaf attack. And then it went in for a headbutt, Blastoise used Bite on its head leaf and then threw it around and then tossed it out of the battle. That was pretty insane to see that. So it made me wonder, the fact that Blastoise was able to use Rapid Spin to deflect attacks. Could it do the same thing to Pikachu's Thunder Attack or Thunderbolt? I mean, I know it's weak against electricity, but it's a pretty interesting thought because I believe it used Rapid Spin to deflect Charizard's Flamethrower, a Muck Sludge Bomb attack. So maybe electricity would still be the same. It would use an attack, but then be nullified by Blastoise spinning Rapid Spin. So I believe Muck was the next Pokemon that Ash called out, but it wasn't able to do much. I believe it did engulf Blastoise because Blastoise used to use Rapid Spin or Skull Bash or something to try and hit Muck. But Muck is like Majin Buu, the fat Buu from the Dragon Ball Z series. Like, no matter how much physical damage it takes, it's like not damage whatsoever. So it went in for, I believe, like a Skull Bash or a Rapid Spin, but Muck kind of engulfed itself around Blastoise's shell, like, sucked it into a sludge body. But using Hydro Pump, it was able to knock Muck back. Ash recalled it. And from there, I believe he chose his Snorlax to go against Nidoqueen. And I'm kind of doing this by memory. I'm sorry about that. But, this battle was just so intense that I kind of remember it detail for detail because I just watched it earlier today. So I know against Nidoqueen, it was pretty interesting. Oh, actually, I forgot a fact because Blastoise, I believe, used Hydro Pump, but Bayleaf used its Vine Whip attack to jump into the air. So Nidoqueen did the same thing to land a double kick on Snorlax, super effective. But here's the crazy part. This is where we get to the part where things get a one-hit knockout kind of one-hit knockouts were present earlier in the match with Bayleaf and Tauros, but here's where the battle just really feels a bit rushed. I know Nidoqueen got knocked out by an Ice Punch from Snorlax. If I'm not mistaken, that was the only attack that Nidoqueen took damage from, even though it was super effective. And the funny thing is, Snorlax, if you look closely, it looked like Snorlax hit Nidoqueen and, the Nido breastplate, if you want to put it that way, and it was knocked out in one hit. Next up, you have Gary's Arcanine, who I love Arcanine. It used Fire Spin on excuse me. Wow, I'm really tongue-tied today. It used Fire Spin on Snorlax and then got knocked out by a Hyper Beam. I believe Snorlax even went for a Body Slam. Arcanine jumped out of the way, used Fire Spin to trap Snorlax in a tornado. One Hyper Beam, it was out. Okay, game mechanic wise, that actually makes sense because, remember, Pokemon abilities weren't a thing back then, so Arcanine didn't have Intimidate. And Hyper Beam was a physical move, so given the fact that Snorlax gets stab damage from it, it makes sense that it was easily able to knock out an Arcanine because of its physical attack power. But again, that's just me making some kind of game logic sense to this. So again, Arcanine's down, so Snorlax is 2 for 2. Next up, Scizor comes out, and Snorlax is a bit tuckered out at this point. And instead of smartly recalling Snorlax, Ash keeps it in battle. I mean, given the pacing and the momentum, you would think Snorlax could win. However, I believe it used Hyper Beam only for Scizor to dodge it and then knock it out with a barrage of quick attacks and then finally a Metal Claw. We have Muck on the scene who, sadly enough, Ash tells it to use Sludge Bomb on Scizor, who dodges it when in reality it should have no effect on Scizor, but whatever. So then after a couple of, if I'm not mistaken, quick attacks, I believe Scizor kind of grabbed Muck, threw it in the air, and then knocked out with Swift. So Scizor pulled a Snorlax and got 2 wins. Charizard, if I'm not mistaken, Heracross, Tauros, Snorlax, Bayleaf, Muck, they're all down. So yeah, Ash's only reserve Pokemon left is Charizard, who easily takes out Scizor with a Flamethrower. I mean, seriously, who wouldn't have seen that coming? Then we get to Golem, who, strangely enough, is able to... I mean, I've already talked about most of this battle as it is, given the fact Charizard tries to use Seismic Toss, but it fails. Strangely enough, a fire fighting type like Charizard takes damage when Golem used Magnitude. Maybe that's because Charizard was clearly standing on the ground, and that's why it took damage? Then Golem uses Rollout, then gets knocked out by Dragon Rage. Now we have Blastoise, who at this point had battled with Muck as well as Bayleaf, not taking much of any damage because remember, it kept using Rapid Spin to deflect attacks. Now, of course, this is like the battle of battles. You have it, I guess you could say Ash and Gary using their most powerful Pokemon. I mean, yeah, I mean, literally, Charizard is arguably Ash's strongest Pokemon at that point in the series. Okay, we're not talking Infernape Blaze or Ash Greninja. This is Johto League Ash. So I would say that it's debatable that Charizard, Snorlax, and Pikachu could hold the top spot if you're looking at those stats. So the battle begins, and the same thing happens. Of course, Charizard's just being nullified. Flamethrower's not working against Rapid Spin. And just a quick side note, if you notice, I believe Charizard was giving Blastoids no damage. Like literally, I think it used like seismic toss. Oh, sorry, that was it. Actually, the end battle. Let's see. Yeah, it took a Skull Bash. It took a Hydro Pump. Not to mention, remember, it took magnitude damage from Golem. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. When I really think about it, I don't even think Charizard did any damage to Blastoise whatsoever. It was able to take it out with one, with one, with one seismic toss. I remember those two were what? It was like a flamethrower and hydro pump collision or something. No, actually, Charizard flew into the air, and then Ash had Charizard use flamethrower in the entire arena, well, battlefield, to make it kind of like a molten lava-like setting. And then Blastoise was told by Gary to use Hydro Pump to cool down the field. And then when the smoke cleared out, they were kind of like grappling. Charizard used Dragon Rage at pretty much right in its face, but cleverly enough, Blastoise ducked right into his shell, and that was pretty cool. And then Ash calls for Seismic Toss. Blastoise used Bite, and then Charizard won. And I was a bit taken aback by that because it was epic to see Ash win. But looking back, the battle was kind of lackluster. And I mean, the only way I can make some sense out of this is, okay, well, maybe because Blastoise was standing on like a molten hot, battlefield, maybe it was slowly losing HP. I don't know. It's almost as ridiculous as the Pokemon Origins battle where Blue and Red fought in the Pokemon League. Remember how that went? Blastoise took out his Jolteon, then it was Charizard versus Blastoise. Charizard's Mega Punch did next to nothing. Blastoise used a Hydro Pump with Charizard barely holding on. Charizard used Fire Spin, which chipped away at Blastoise's health, but then with one Fire Blast, it was able to take out Blastoise with what most likely was a critical hit. The thing about the anime is that, if it was following game logic, Blastoise shouldn't have been defeated by Seismic Toss, which has set damage based off the Pokemon's level. I mean, it would have made sense if, let's say, it took maybe a Dragon Rage or a Flamethrower, which weakened it, but it took no damage. It literally got knocked out by a Seismic Toss, and that was it. So, overall, the battle itself, while nostalgically great, which I still, don't get me wrong, despite being kind of critical about it, I love the battle, hence why I rewatched it. I figure I'm probably going to rewatch it again, for the next week here or so. But it really was a bit of a letdown because, Ash didn't use Pikachu. The battle seemed a bit rushed. Some of the mechanics really made no sense whatsoever. And I felt like there was a bad way for Gary to lose. I mean, heck, I wish he would have used his Umbreon. I mean, up until that point, Umbreon was seen to be like a major player of Gary's team. Not to say that any of his Pokemon were weak, but I don't see why he used Magmar and Blastoise. I mean, Magmar and Arcanine on his team. I mean, why have two fire types? I mean, Ash had what? A normal Tauros, the bug fighting Heracross. Well, he did have a normal Snorlax, but you can almost say they're complements of each other where they're both extremely powerful Pokemon. But I guess you could say Snorlax is the bulkier, slower Pokemon, while Tauros is the speedy attacker. Then, of course, he had Bayleaf, which was a grass type, Charizard, which was a fire flying, and Muck, which was a poison type. Gary had the Bug Steel Scizor, the Fire Arcanine and Magmar, Water Blastoids. He had the Ground Poison Nidoqueen, and then the Ground Rock Golem. So I guess you could say that Ash's team was a bit more diverse, but when it comes to pure power, I would say Gary should have been the victor, but that's just my opinion on the case. So in the comment section below, this nostalgic battle, what did you think of it? Like literally, if you take off the nostalgia glasses and kind of look at it, with a little more, okay, what really made sense and what didn't, did you enjoy it for what it was? I mean, I did, but I feel like for a battle of rivals, there are way too many one-hit knockouts. I mean, even if you look at the Ash versus Paul in the Sinnoh League, and again, based off how this video does, if it does well, I'll go ahead and do another video kind of breaking down the Ash versus Paul in the Sinnoh League battle, just to see that that battle itself didn't have near as many one-hit knockouts, even though some of the victories made no sense. At least the battles weren't over that quickly. If I'm not mistaken, that battle was stretched out for what, like 3 episodes. So with that being said, I'm just going to bring this video to a close, and hopefully, I'll get a lot of responses, because that's why I made this video, to get your feedback. So with that being said, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you next time.